So I was invited to speak about the most familiar Jewish symbol, which is the Star of David. In Hebrew, it's called Magen David, but that actually doesn't mean star. What it means is shield, the shield of David. And as you see, it's a six-pointed star with two triangles superimposed on each other. And you've probably seen it in Jewish art. And you may even have seen Jewish people wearing a necklace around their necks with a Jewish star. So this symbol is very familiar, but it's not very old in Judaism. The first substantiated connection with the Jewish community is late, relatively speaking, in Jewish history. So it's only in the 17th century that we first see a hexagram on the Jewish quarter in Vienna. Remember, at that time, Jews lived in segregated areas, particularly in Europe, but in many parts of the world up until the French Revolution. Now, this star, though it's called the Star of David, has no historical connection with King David, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But it did become very popular in 18th and 19th century synagogue architecture. And so you will see it on synagogues, not only the synagogues of the Ashkenazim, of the Jews of Europe, but also on the synagogues of the Mizrahi Jews, the Jews who lived in North Africa and who lived in Arab countries. So both large divisions of the Jewish community in the 18th and 19th century used the Jewish star as a symbol in Jewish architecture. What preceded the Jewish star? There were Jews around for a long time before the 17th century, so how did Jews identify? And that was the menorah. So unfortunately, this is not a menorah. This is a Chanukiah. It has 8 branches in the middle, and this is the menorah that is lit on the holiday of Hanukkah. But it is not the original menorah. The original menorah is a 7-branched menorah with one light for each of the days of the week. And this is the menorah that is described in the book of Exodus. If any of you have read chapter 25 of the book of Exodus, there's an extensive description of this menorah. This was the menorah in the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary that traveled with the Jewish people during their desert wanderings. It was meant to look like a plant. It had a lot of plant-like features. It had branches, and on the branches were little cups, and they were shaped like almond blossoms, and there were calyxes, and there were petals. And when it was lit up, this menorah was meant to look like the burning bush. Remember, Moses had had that call, that experience of God's presence at the burning bush. And in order to make that present to every Jew, everyone who came to the Mishkan, the portable tabernacle, or later to the temple, the menorah was meant to look like a bush aflame, but not consumed. Now, we believe this is a very ancient design because we found among archaeologists digging in Assyria, also on Assyrian seals, pictures of menorahs, of candelabras with plant motifs. The candelabra that stood in the temple was about 52 inches high. Okay, so it was a full size, and it burned from evening until morning every single day. In fact, it being lit each day was a sign of the commitment of the ancient priests to their service of God. We are told there were 10 of these menorot in King Solomon's temple, but in the second temple, the temple rebuilt when the Jews came back from the Babylonian exile, there was only one menorah. That lasted in the temple to the year 70 when the temple was destroyed by the Romans. And you can see it in the Arch of Titus in Rome because they were very proud of having taken the candelabra as booty after the destruction of the temple and very proud of that conquest. So that's a little bit about the menorah. Now, what should we say about that 6-branched pointed star, which everyone associates with the Jews? We know it existed throughout history and across many different cultures. It became associated later in history with the Jewish people. It was found in the ancient world. It was found on Christian shrines in the Middle Ages. It was found in the art of India and the art of the Muslim world. It was even the sheriff's badge on the American West. So it was ubiquitous. Some people say it was the shape of David's shield. I don't know if that would make such a great shield. Other people say it was the symbol on King Solomon's ring. There are lots of stories about King Solomon's ring that he used as his seal. But that is not called Magen David, that's called Chotem Shlomo, Solomon's seal. So you wonder about that. And there's nothing in the historical evidence or the archaeological evidence to tie it back to biblical times. The Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics, wrote a lot. They offered a lot of explanations of the star in terms of the male emanations of God, uniting with the female emanations of God. And in general, the star was found in magical sources all through the Middle Ages. There are isolated examples of the star in Jewish history. Bar Kokhba, who led a rebellion against the Romans and minted coins, has one coin with the Jewish star, but he has lots of coins with the menorah. So it's not like that was the only symbol. They dug up an Italian Jewish cemetery from the 6th century and found one tombstone with the Jewish star, but not on the other tombstones. So we're not sure how it became associated with the Jewish people, but certainly by the modern era, it was associated with Judaism. So when the Zionist movement began meeting its first Congress in Europe in 1897, they chose the Star of David as a symbol of their movement, maybe because of the association of King David in Israel, in Jerusalem, and so forth. It also was later used by the Nazis as a way of identifying the Jewish people, the yellow star, identifying them for destruction. And then perhaps partially because of that, the symbol was chosen again by the modern state of Israel in 1948 as a symbol on the flag. There, the Star of David is surrounded by two stripes representing the talit, the religious garb, with the colors of blue and white for the sand and the sky, and what lifts us up to look in the sky. There was a famous 20th century theologian named Franz Rosenzweig, and he wrote a whole book called Star of Redemption, all about the Jewish six-pointed star. He says that one of these stars represents God, the world, and human beings. And the other star represents the relationships between them. So God created the world. So we have that relationship. God revealed the Torah, and we human beings are meant to redeem the world by using the teachings of God. So these are themes that are very present in Jewish worship and continue to be part of Jewish theology today. So why do so many Jewish people wear a Jewish star around their neck? I think partly it's because this symbol of degradation for the Jewish people has been lifted up to become a symbol of Jewish survival and a symbol of pride. And I think that's why this symbol is so popular today. So thank you for the opportunity for sharing.